All right, so we're going to get a start on 32.2 today. We actually already did part of what usually goes with this section yesterday when we did the radian counting and filled out, the coordinates, the ordered pairs for everything on the back of the radian counting. So in this section, first thing I want to start with here is to point out, even though we're not really going to use it because you've got your paper, is to point out that here in the book, they didn't write it in the simplest form. Up here, they say, in order to, have the hypotenuse be 1, that the sides would have to be radical 2 over 2. But I just don't want you looking at that and thinking that those would be your sine or cosine values because obviously they're not. And of course we did them yesterday. But in the unit circle, the hypotenuse, because it's a radius, is 1. So the two sides would be radical 2 over 2. So I just wanted to point that out there. So what we're going to be doing today and what's in your homework is that you are going to be given various angles and you'll be asked to find either the sine and cosine or to find the tangent. So if you look at what we did yesterday on the back of the handout where we had the ordered pairs and then in the bottom left corner where we wrote that the y-coordinate is the sine and the x-coordinate is the cosine, and we also had written that tangent of the angle would equal the sine divided by the cosine. So we're going to be using that today. You can read through the examples that are already in the book if you want, but we're going to do the ones that are not already complete. Not going to do all of them necessarily, depending on how long it takes, but we will definitely, do enough, I think, to get you started. So here is pretty standard what they're going to give you. So they're going to give you the angle, and we are going to find the sine and the cosine. So for theta equals 300, my first step for this is always to draw a sketch. So 300 degrees, it's a positive angle, so it goes this way. It's 30 past the 270 mark. So if I were sketching at this would be 300 degrees. Now, remember that when I am finding the sine and the cosine, it's from the ordered pair. Now, the ordered pair is going to be formed by the triangle made by the reference angle. So you're going to need to label your reference angles. So in this case, my reference angle is 60, and I can draw my right triangle right here. The right triangle that you draw should never ever have one of its sides as the x or as the y-axis. It should always be the x-axis, the terminal side is the hypotenuse, and then just connecting them with a right angle is your third side. Do not ever use the y-axis as one of the sides. So if I know that this is 60 degrees, then that I could look, if I wanted to, at what I had done yesterday. So yesterday I had just this part of the circle, and we had labeled, 30, 45, 60. And so at 30, we had the ordered pair, radical 3 over 2, 1/2. At 45, radical 2 over 2 for both. And then up here at 60, it was just the reverse of 30, so 1/2 first, and then radical 3 over 2 is the y-coordinate. So this was 30, 45, and 60 degrees. So 60 degrees, again, you can use the actual triangle if you want. The hypotenuse is 1, which means that the short leg, which would be over here, would be 1/2. And then the long leg is going to be radical 3 over 2. Now what you need to keep in mind, this coordinate is what I'm looking for, that ordered pair. So I went to the right 1/2 and I went down. Down means negative, so negative radical 3 over 2 would be the y-coordinate there. So see how I did? I drew the triangle, I labeled it, and then that allowed me to write the ordered pair. Once I have the ordered pair, I have the sine and the cosine, because the sine is your y value, the cosine is your x value. So on here, if I'm listing sine of 300, it's negative radical 3 over 2, and cosine of 300 is going to be 1/2. So my work is the drawing, is my triangle. All right, let's try another here. My theta is negative 225. So again, my first job is going to be to sketch it. So negative angles go the opposite direction. So negative 225 is 180 plus an additional 45 more. So this is where it lands. My reference angle, again, notice how I'm using a different color here, terminal side and the x-axis. So in this case, here's my triangle. My reference angle is 45 degrees. So hypotenuse is 1 because it's a radius of the unit circle. And I know that my sides are both going to be radical 2 over 2 because it's a 45, 45, 90. Now again, what I'm actually after is this point's ordered pair. So distances, when I label the triangle, it's always positive. But the distances here, I went left, so that's negative, negative radical 2 over 2. Up is positive, so that would be positive radical 2 over 2. So the sine is the positive one, so, oops, and I started to write cosine. Sine of negative 225 is going to be positive radical 2 over 2. And the cosine of negative 225 is going to be negative radical 2 over 2. All right. Next one we're going to look at is 5 pi over 6 here. So first thing I'm going to do is sketch it. 5/6 is a little bit less than 1, so a little bit less than pi. So here's my sketch. That's more than halfway. Sorry, it's hard to draw straight here. And my reference angle, which is here's x-axis, here's the terminal side. My reference angle is pi over 6. I don't care if you label it 30 degrees because that's what pi over 6 is, but make sure, of course, that if I asked you for the reference angle that you wrote pi over 6. So 30 degrees, pi over 6 is my reference angle, so that means the short leg's over here. So 1/2, 1, radical 3 over 2. The ordered pair, which would be up here, I went left, so that's negative, so negative radical 3 over 2. And then up 1/2, that's positive. So sine of 5 pi over 6 is the y coordinate, which is 1/2. And the cosine of 5 pi over 6 is the x coordinate, and that's negative radical 3 over 2. All right, last one here. Going to look at negative 4 pi over 3. So we'll sketch it first. That's negative 1 and 1/3 pi. So here's negative 1 pi. 1/3 pi would be here. It's more than halfway because it's pi over 3 into the next coordinate, which is 60 degrees. So then terminal side, highlighting it, highlighting the x-axis. This angle is pi over 3 because that's how much further I went than pi. Pi over 3 is 60 degrees. I'm going to use a different color here. That's not showing up very well. So 60 degrees, that means this is the long leg, radical 3 over 2. This is the short leg, hypotenuse is always 1. When I label the ordered pair, which is on the terminal side of the angle, I went left 1/2 and up radical 3 over 2. So the sine of negative 4 pi over 3 is the y coordinate, which is radical 3 over 2. And the cosine of negative 4 pi over 3 is the x coordinate, which is negative 1/2. Okay. So that's pretty much half of what you're doing in your homework. The other half is finding the tangent values. Now, oops, went too far there. Yesterday we had written out on your little worksheet that the tangent of t, because the angle was labeled t there, was the sine of t divided by the cosine of t, which means the same thing as this, because in this case they've labeled it differently. They've labeled the ordered pair xy instead of, cosine sine. So y divided by x, or sine divided by cosine, is how we are going to come up with the tangent. So we still need to start all of these the same way. Sketch the angle, draw the triangle, write out the ordered pair. So again, they've got some examples here that are already drawn out for you. We're going to do the ones where they didn't draw them out. And I'm just going to do 2 of these 4 here because I think we'll get the gist after that. So first I want to look at well, maybe I'll have time. We'll see. We'll do 300 first. So I've already sketched that one. We should know where it is. So 300 degrees lands here with a 60-degree reference angle. So that ordered pair hasn't changed any. This is the radical 3 over 2. This is the 1/2. This is the 1. So the ordered pair, I went right a half and down radical 3 over 2. So when I am finding the tangent, I need to take the sine value divided by the cosine value. So y divided by x, essentially. So I'm going to take negative radical 3 over 2, and I'm going to divide it by 1/2. Now, hopefully you know how to divide fractions, because remember, you can't use a calculator on the quiz or test on this part. So remember that when we divide fractions, we're really multiplying by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by 2 over 1. When I do that, my 2's cancel, and so I just end up with negative radical 3 as my answer here. 450, let's try that one. Well, 450 is 360 plus 90. So when I sketch it all the way around and I land on 90. 90 is a quadrantal, so we wrote out and used those ordered pairs yesterday. 90's ordered pair is 0, 1. So the tangent is going to be y divided by x, 1 divided by 0. Now, we can't do that. We can't divide by 0. So actually here, at this quadrantal, my tangent is undefined. If it were 0 over 1, then the answer would just be 0. But we can't have 0 in the denominator, so it is undefined. C, 2 pi over 3. So 2/3 pi. If I sketch that one, it's not quite to 1. So 2/3 pi, 2/3 of the way. There we go. So if I draw my triangle here, my reference angle is pi over 3, which is 60 degrees. So across from the 60 is my radical 3 over 2. Across from the 30 is my 1/2. And my hypotenuse is 1. So I'm going to use a different color here to label the ordered pair. So I went left 1/2, so that's negative. So negative 1/2. And then I went up radical 3 over 2. So, again, sine divided by the cosine. If I look here, really, this is very similar to what I just did in A, except for the sign here on them. So I'm taking the sine value, which is radical 3 over 2, and I'm dividing it by negative 1/2. So when I do that, then I get radical 3 over 2 times negative 2 over 1, which gives me the exact same result. I get negative radical 3 for the tangent of 2 pi over 3. They're not the same angle, they're not even coterminal, but I still get the same angle and the same tangent, and the reason why is because their reference angles are the same. And the tangent, if I look at my All Scholars Take Calculus, tangent is negative in both quadrant 4, which is where A was, and in quadrant 2, which is where C was. All right, last one, 11 pi over 4. So that's 2 3/4 pi. So when I sketch it, 2 pi lands here. 3/4 pi is exactly halfway in between this quadrant. So that means my reference angle is pi over 4, or 45 degrees. So I've got radical 2 over 2 for both my legs, and 1 for my hypotenuse. So that means the ordered pair up here, I went left, radical 2 over 2, so that's negative, left is negative, and then I went up, that's positive. So y divided by x, radical 2 over 2, divided by negative radical 2 over 2. Now, you can certainly multiply by the reciprocal here if you want, but you shouldn't have to. The values are the same except for their sign. When you divide things that are opposites, hopefully we know that the answer is -1. So in this case, you really don't have to write out the multiplication by the reciprocal. All right, your homework is just what's down here. So notice in 1, it's sine and cosine that you're asked to find. Tangent for 2 and 3. Make sure that you show your work. You absolutely must show your sketch with the triangle and the ordered pair. That's it.